On the news tonight, Senate passed Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026 after rowdy session. Suspected Boko Haram terrorists attack Borno community, destroy infrastructure. Aboderi Akindoju emerged as Osho National Union of Journalists Chairman and Secretary. On the foreign scene, Iran Foreign Minister says progress made in nuclear talks with U.S. in Geneva. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Okwayemuni. The Senate on Tuesday passed the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2026. Before the passage, there was a rowdy session as the upper chamber resumed proceedings with a demand for division over Clause 60 raised by Senator Inaya Abaribe, ADC, Abia South. The Senate President Godswill Akpabio stated that he believed the demand had previously been withdrawn, but several opposition senators immediately objected to that claim, citing Order 52, subsection 6. The Deputy Senate President, Barau Jibrin, argued that it would be out of order to revisit any provision on which the Senate President had already ruled. This submission sparked another uproar in the chamber, during which Senator Sunday Karimi had a brief face-off with Abaribe. The Senate leader, Opeyemi Bamidele, then reminded lawmakers that he had sponsored the motion for rescission, underscoring that decisions previously made by the Senate are no longer valid. During the division, Akpabio directed senators to support the caveat to stand, then asked those opposed to the caveat to rise. 15 opposition senators stood in opposition. However, when the votes were counted, the Senate President announced that 15 senators were not in support of the proviso, while 55 senators voted in support of it. Earlier, proceedings in the Senate were momentarily stalled as lawmakers began clause-by-clause consideration of the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2026, following a motion to rescind the earlier amendment. The motion to rescind the bill was formally seconded, paving the way for the upper chamber to dissolve into the Committee of the Whole for detailed reconsideration and reenactment of the proposed legislation. In the meantime, the House of Representatives was in a rowdy session as lawmakers disagreed over a motion seeking to rescind the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which contained real-time electronic transmission of results. The chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Waive, had moved a motion for the House to rescind its decision on the bill, which was passed on December 23, in line with the Senate's position on real-time electronic transmission of election results. When the Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, put a motion to a voice vote, the nays were louder than the ayes, but he ruled that the ayes had it. The ruling triggered protests from lawmakers who began shouting in objection, prompting the Speaker to call for an executive session. When the House of Representatives passed the Electoral Act, it adopted the compulsory real-time transmission of election results to IREV. However, when the Red Chamber passed its version of the bill, the senators rejected the proposal for the real-time transmission of election results. Both the Senate and House of Representatives set up a joint conference committee to harmonize the versions of the bills passed by both chambers. Opposition parties are asking the National Assembly to adopt an House of Representatives version, which includes the real-time clause.
Aye. Those against you say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
The bill is recommended to the Committee of the Whole. Honorable colleagues, we just observe some few minutes.
ABC.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Police Force has come under fire after its operatives reportedly fired tear gas at protesters who stormed the National Assembly today, demanding the mandatory inclusion of real-time electronic transmission of election results in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2026. The demonstrators, who returned to the National Assembly complex after a 5-day break, had earlier suspended their protest following assurances given during last Tuesday's sitting. It will be recalled that the Senate had reconvened for an emergency plenary session last Tuesday to revisit its controversial decision on Clause 60, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill after widespread public outcry. During the session, Senate Chief Whip Senator Tahir Monguno, APC Borno North, moved a motion to strip the phrase real-time from the clause while also replacing the word transmission with transfer, a move that drew sharp criticism from civil society groups and electoral reform advocates.
Americans and Nigerians were in the Capitol Hill presenting their request. Nobody sent a tear gas. You can imagine me. You can imagine in this place right now. I just came in from the States, and you can imagine Nigerians in a peaceful demonstration. And you're pumping tear gas on Nigerians. Just imagine me right now.
Our protest has been peaceful. Our demand for the right thing to be done.
A simple request by the people, simple request by the citizen, and all that they need to do is to listen to the citizen and not to come and threaten the citizen. This is our younger generation. I was passing and I saw these younger people standing for the future of the nation. And what this country, what these people can do is to bomb tear gas on innocent Nigerians. Now, I'm saying this. I'm saying this to every Nigerian. Let me say this. You are responsible to decide what happened in your country.
Yes.
You are responsible. Yes. You either allow tyranny or you allow democracy to reign in your country. Nigeria, it is your time. I am here as a priest.
Yes.
I am here as a priest. I came to see what's going on and to stand with these young people. All they are asking for is for the e-transmission of results, real time. And this is what you're getting.
We are not deterred. There is no going back. We are not better than the 100 persons killed in Kwara. We are not better than persons killed in Bokos and Mango in Lagos. We are not better than people.
The Senate has amended Clause 28 of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, slashing the notice of election requirements by 60 days from 360 days to 300, leaving the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the flexibility to fix the election dates between December 2026 and January 2027. The amended Clause 28 states that the Commission shall not later than 300 days before the day appointed for holding of an election under this bill publish a notice in each state of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory setting the date of the election, and B, appointing the place at which nomination papers are to be delivered. The amendment was effected today during the clause-by-clause consideration of a reworked Electoral Act Amendment Bill after the Senate leader, Okoyemi Bamidele, raised the motion on the rescission and recommittal of the Electoral Act 2022, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2026. Okoyemi underscored that upon critical review of a passed bill, the 360-day notice requirement prescribed in Clause 28 will result in the scheduling of the 2027 presidential and National Assembly elections during the Ramadan period. According to him, holding elections during Ramadan could negatively affect voter turnout, logistical coordination, stakeholder participation, and the overall inclusiveness and credibility of the electoral process. To security matters, suspected Boko Haram insurgents attacked the Debiro community in the Biu local government area of Borno State, destroying infrastructure. The incident happened on Sunday afternoon when the attackers, numbering about 40, arrived in the community on 16 motorcycles, disguised as local vigilantes. They were said to have attempted to gather a member of the community who ran into the bush in one place before launching their attack. Although no life was lost in the failed mission, they went ahead to burn a church, about 25 houses, foodstuffs, and the available vehicles found in the community. A resident who spoke to newsmen this morning said the recent attack has created fear in the hearts of residents after enjoying relative peace in recent times. The Bureau and agrarian community is located about 48 kilometers away from Biu, the headquarters of the Biu local government area of the state. Moving on, human rights lawyer Inibe Effiong has said the federal government has no interest in prosecuting former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai. El-Rufai faces cybercrime charges over the alleged unlawful interception of the phone communications of the National Security Advisor, NSA, Nur Ribadu. The case was filed by the federal government on Monday, barely 3 days after El-Rufai said during a live interview that the NSA's phone conversation was intercepted and that he had the NSA directing security operatives to detain him. Weighing in on the matter during an interview this morning, Effiong said the Nigerian government has not shown seriousness with the case. Speaking further, the lawyer argued that the charges the government filed against the former governor through the State Security Services, SSS, does not have some particulars. A date for his arraignment has not yet been fixed. The former governor previously backed President Bola Tinubu's emergence as All Progressives Congress APC presidential candidate in 2023. They parted ways politically, with El-Rufai turning into Tinubu's first critic after the president's initial move to appoint the former Kaduna State governor as a minister fell through. Karen Osun Adeyemi Aboderi has emerged as the new chairman of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, NUJ, Osun State Council, following the conclusion of a keenly contested election. Dr. Aboderi of the Osun State Broadcasting Corporation, OSBC, polled 135 votes to defeat his opponent, Sofiu Abu-Ganiu of the State Information Chapel, who garnered 98 votes in one of the most closely fought contests of the election. Head of News and Current Affairs at Rave FM and Western Spring Television, Lekan Akindoju, was elected secretary of the council after securing 122 votes, edging past his opponent, Lateef Dada of the Sun newspaper, who polled 112 votes. In his acceptance speech, the new chairman, Dr. Aboderi, appreciated the union for giving him the opportunity to lead, while pledging that tremendous achievements will be recorded in the next 3 years. Similarly, in his address, Mr. Akindoju vowed to continue to work for the progress of the union while speaking on the assessment of the election. Chairman of NUJ Ogun State Council, Wale Olarewaju, commended what he described as a peaceful conduct of the candidate and urged the newly elected executive members to uphold the statutes of the union and work collectively to promote professionalism, unity, and welfare of journalists across the state.
Do solemnly swear, and that friends and be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Nigerian Union of Journalists. I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully, and in accordance with the Constitution and the laws governing the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and always in the interest, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. I will strive.
In another development, the Federal Ministry of Health has ordered an immediate disengagement of directors who have spent at least 8 years in the directorate cadre with immediate effect. The directors affected include those in the ministry, federal hospitals, agencies, among others, according to a memo cited by newsmen in Abuja this morning. On Monday, Punch had reported that the federal government directed all ministries, departments, and agencies to enforce the 8-year tenure limit for directors and permanent secretaries. Following a new deadline set through the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, the memo announcing the enforcement of the order the FMOH signed by the director overseeing the Office of the Permanent Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Health, Shoma Dafeta. The memo read that all affected officers who have spent 8 years as directors effective 31st December 2025 are disengaged from service immediately. Still to come, Saudi Arabia cites crescent moon as Ramadan fasting begins Wednesday. We'll bring you more on this when we